In the co-main, Cecilia Braekus defends her welterweight titles. I thought the scores were a little bit wide. She was hurt a couple times in that fight. She was buzzed. One of the shots she caught, the ref called it a knockdown, gave it a standing 8 count. Lucky to escape out of here with a victory. I'm banging the drums right now. I want to see Katie Taylor, the Irish lightweight, move up in weight to welterweight and challenge Cecilia Braekus for her titles. That is one of the few fights in female boxing that I think can attract mainstream attention. Braekus she's a mainstream name in Norway. She's a Colombian, born in Colombia, but she lives in Norway. That's where she does big numbers. She's out of Norway. And obviously with Katie Taylor, with the Irish Olympian, she does big numbers there. That's a super fight in the female fight scene over there in Europe. I want to see Eddie Hearn start banging the drums for that fight. Katie Taylor can move up in weight. I get it. Cecilia Braekus is bigger, but they're pretty much the same height. Katie Taylor is in her 20s. Braekus is in her late 30s. I think that's a real fight, and we need to see that. That is one of the few female fights in boxing that can cross over. HBO featured Katie Taylor highlights from her fight last week on the card, right? Cecilia Braekus tonight made history. The first female fighter fighting live on regular HBO, not pay-per-view. Let's make that fight. Katie Taylor, Cecilia Braekus. Now, main event. Gennady Golovkin in 2 rounds destroys Martirosyan. First round was pretty competitive. I thought Martirosyan fought very well, landed some shots, showed his craft. Look, Martirosyan is a good quality fighter, knows how to survive in there, knows how to go rounds. I thought this fight was going to go more than 6 rounds. I actually thought Martirosyan was going to survive in there. But in the second round, Golovkin caught him up on the ropes, landed a couple of shots. It seemed to stun Martirosyan. He seemed almost paralyzed. And then Golovkin just teed off with shots, rights, lefts, upstairs, downstairs, got him out of there, right? You could tell Martirosyan had never been hit with a shot like that. In fact, right after the fight, he told Max Kellerman, "This is the hardest puncher I've ever fought," which makes sense. The guy is really a junior middleweight. So he was moving up in weight for this fight. This fight obviously was stay busy for Golovkin. He gets rounds in, a couple rounds of work. He gets a camp. He gets another victory. He defends his titles again. The fight we really want to see is him and Canelo Alvarez. I think that fight's going to happen September 15th in Las Vegas. We'll see. If Canelo Alvarez decides he wants a tune-up fight for his comeback fight in September, if I'm Team Golovkin, I'm moving on at that point. I'm giving Team Canelo until maybe July to make a decision, and then I'm moving forward. If Canelo hasn't guaranteed you that he's going to fight you September 15th, and Golden Boy Promotions hasn't signed that contract, if it's not written in stone, I'm moving forward. And I'm fighting Billy Joe Saunders later this year to unify all the titles. Gennady Golovkin right now has killers in this division. For a while, this division was cold, but right now you got Jermall Charlo, right? WBC mandatory. You've got Sergey Derevyanchenko, IBF mandatory. You've got Daniel Jacobs, WBA mandatory. And then you've got Billy Joe Saunders, who has the WBO title. You've got Ryota Murata, who I wouldn't call a killer yet. He's still really a prospect, but he's a huge star in Japan. That's a huge money-making fight for Golovkin over in Tokyo. If that fight happens, and I do think it happens within the next 12 to 18 months, that's a massive event over in Japan. Not even arguable. It's the biggest boxing event ever in Japan. And yes, I'm including Tyson Douglas in that. It's the biggest boxing event ever in Japan. So if you're Gennady Golovkin, you've got all these killers, right? Next year and forward. Right now, you want to focus on Canelo. But if Canelo ain't playing ball, you've let this dude and his promoter, Golden Boy Promotions, dictate your career for the last 18 to 24 months. If he doesn't sign that contract by mid-July, move forward. Agree to fight Billy Joe Saunders, who's been on HBO before. That fight makes sense on regular HBO this fall. It all works out. You unify all the titles. Hashtag all the belts, right? It's time for Gennady Golovkin, if Canelo Alvarez isn't willing, to put up or shut up and start fighting these young killers in the middleweight division.